got a whole other set of things we got to start thinking about. We're in an environment with new foods, different water filtration, air stuff. It's all waiting for us.
It is. I feel like we're really trying to put people off going on a holiday here, James. So
no, I just want people to be prepared and be thinking very much about what's happening, where we're going.
Okay, so it obviously depends where we go, how tropical the environment is. Did we need vaccinations or anti-malaria tablets before we've even set off? And then when we're there, the most common thing that people tend to get is something called traveller's diarrhea. And the reason for that is that even if, and I would advise most people don't drink the water in the country that they're going to. And
beware of ice cubes too, because a lot of times the ice comes just from tap water.
But it's not even just that. Think about the food that you eat. If you go to a salad bar, the lettuce is going to be washed in that water. You can't entirely avoid the water, so you want to minimize it as much as possible. You brush your teeth with bottled water, you drink bottled water as far as possible. Unless you're going somewhere like Canada, the UK, America, where it's safe to drink, and it's, even then, the thing is that the filtration systems, as you say, are different. The bacteria or everything that is present, and especially on food, they have different types of bacteria or viruses, etc., that live on surfaces, on foods, within things that you're not used to. Yeah. Whereas
it's that difference. It's the difference that becomes the key.
Because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So we have built up a tolerance to it here in the UAE, for instance. Yeah. But then if we go to Thailand for the week, we haven't built that tolerance up. It's new, and we get diarrhea. So very, very common to get traveller's diarrhea. And the first thing most people do is want to take an Imodium to help clog them up if they've got diarrhea. And I advise, unless you're getting on a plane, try not to. Let your body get rid of it.
Let it go. Keep the flow.
Yes, keep the flow. Unless obviously you're starting to become dehydrated.
Because that's usually what everyone does. They've got the travel diarrhea. They got travel diarrhea, so they've got their Imodiums, sitting there, the Pepto-Bismol. They're ready to go.
Well, Pepto-Bismol's okay, but the Imodium, unless you're getting on a plane, the usual advice, or someone's becoming so severely dehydrated because they're losing so much water, by which case they're normally managed by an inpatient facility anyway. Normally advise just try and just hold off on it, because it can then make you quite constipated, and also your bowel's still going to be very irritable, and it kind of wants to expel. That's why it does it. It's trying to get rid of what's considered a poison by the body.
So what do you recommend then, if we're just letting it let it work its course, but we don't want to really start chugging back on popping the Imodiums, especially the fast acting ones coming in a sleeve of 6, and you only take 3, you're done. You're done right at that point.
James has done this a few times.
Clearly. So what do you recommend to help stiffen up the stool?
So it's not necessarily about stiffening up the stool.
I just thought that was a nice. It rolled off the tongue there.
I can see how.
I almost think we could get out the guitars and we've got a little riff there.
Stiffen up the stool. That's like my boys keep saying, I don't want to go to school in the morning, and I'm like, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to school. It's like you have to make a song out of it. So what I would suggest really is, people are quite adamant that they need to eat. They feel that they really need to eat, especially if you've paid all inclusive. Of course you want to eat.
Yeah.
However, your stomach is basically hyperreactive at this stage. So every time you eat, you actually set off the reflex to try and basically cause a bowel movement. And that's why a lot of people, when they're having their breakfast, especially men, they will then go and empty their bowels quite soon after. My dad, like clockwork, every single day of his life. And really what you want to do is just let everything settle down. So you can take things like Buscopan, but to be honest, I don't like giving such generic advice to everybody, because everyone's a little bit different. So you kind of want to try and reduce the spasms in the stomach. Take it easy, take small sips of water. If you are feeling very nauseous, you can consider an anti-sickness medication as well, because that's a lot more difficult to tolerate than diarrhea. And just make sure that you're taking rehydration sachets as well. That's not a bad thing to take on holiday.
I do a note aside. I just read something by someone who was talking about, office work and just being in all of these buildings again and things. And they have a couple of, maybe one of these rehydration sachets a day at work. And they said they feel so much better than they did before they started doing this. And look, they're sugar free or whatever, and they're not full of substitute chemicals to give sweetness. But they said it really makes a big difference. They didn't realize how dehydrated they were getting working indoors.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't comment necessarily specifically on that, because I guess that's got something to do with air conditioning,
whatever building they're in.
But if you have diarrhea, for sure you want to be taking hydration sachets.
So good to have some of those sachets in the emergency kit that you've got in your bag.
It is a really good idea, especially pediatric and adults if you're traveling with children, because children especially, because they're not as exposed as adults to all these different types of bacteria or flora.
And just imagine you're at a hotel, you're at someone's place, or you're at an Airbnb, and this is going to kick in at an hour, 7 in the morning or 10 at night. And you're not going to know where to go. You're not going to be able to find these things. And all you're going to say, oh, don't worry, I have a stash.
If you have nothing available and you want to try and rehydrate, there was a GP I used to work with. And rather than say to go down and buy Diarrhea, he used to tell every patient, take some warm water, put in a spoonful of sugar and a spoonful of salt and mix it in. Now, that sounds awful, but it'll probably do the job. Not as well as rehydration, but it's something, because you're trying to replace salt and sugar. Okay. If you stop passing urine, your lips become so dried and cracked, you kind of lose, if you pinch your skin and it kind of just stays and it doesn't bounce back, it's effectively you lose the skin turgor.
How do you get to that point? Like, that sounds to me like...
Very well, the biggest one, I can't remember whether it's the biggest killer or... I think it's actually the biggest killer in the third world is diarrhea.
Yeah, I believe
it's
it.
Dehydration.
Yeah, I believe it.
So it's dehydration that you're aiming to avoid more than anything. And let's face it, it's miserable. You go on holiday, this isn't what you go for. So that's why, as James said, making sure you wash your hands, you avoid undercooked chicken, you don't eat rice that's been laid out for absolutely hours if you can avoid it. You where possible you're ordering fresh meals or restaurants that look clean as well. Yeah. It's going to be a good start.
And then, just as you said, making sure you have some of these, electrolyte stuff with you. Don't be jumping on the Imodiums right off the bat. Let things work its course. What are the things that we can eat to help give us to generally in a diet anyway, if we're loose-stooled? What are some of the things you might suggest?
Normally fibre, actually. Although fibre is considered something that you would take if you're constipated to help a bowel movement. Yeah. It can also work the other way as well and just help bulk you up a little bit. Okay. But to be honest, if someone did have a diarrhea, I always say eat bland. So you're looking all the things that Dr. Atkins says don't eat. Piece of toast. Not so much rice, but just like a cracker, salty cracker, something like that. Okay. They're the things that you would have. If you do have a lot of diarrhea, you want to try and stay away as well from things like prunes, fruit juice, too much fruit generally because it's the sugars, and just go for things like, again, it'd be something quite bland as well. Bread is quite good as well because it's quite sticky, so it helps everything to stick together a little bit more.